Rumor had it that the aloof campus belle had an extreme dislike for men. Every one of her suitors had been mercilessly rejected and publicly humiliated by her. So, when the students saw me standing beneath the campus belle's dormitory building holding a bouquet of flowers, they all took out their phones, preparing to record the moment I would embarrass myself. However, what they never expected was that I directly bought her first night. I smiled and said, "Date me, I'll cover all of your mother's hospital expenses." And just like that, the once penniless campus belle endured the humiliation and stayed with me for 5 years. The only requirement I had for her was this: every single day, she had to sleep with me in different ways, until I eventually grew tired of her. But one day, I gave up being intimate with her. I completely changed my attitude, and no longer stopped her from secretly meeting her childhood sweetheart. Her brows furrowed tightly, not knowing what kind of trick I was playing this time. Chapter 1. What she didn't know was that I had awakened. I realized that I was living inside a novel, and that I, a spoiled rich second-generation heir, was nothing more than the vicious male supporting role in the story. She was the female lead, and her childhood friend was the male lead. According to the original plot, the once poor campus beauty had already used the original version of me to achieve a leap in social class. Soon, she would rise to the top in one swift step, while my ending would be a miserable death on the streets. If I wanted to survive, I had to disappear completely from the sight of the male and female leads. So I used my connections to find an authoritative agency, planning to fake my death and escape. Master George, everything for the fake death has already been prepared. As you instructed, it can proceed smoothly in half a month. A staff member in a suit handed the contract to me. I glanced at it casually and asked indifferently, "The dead person, does he look like me?" The men immediately took out a photograph. "You can rest assured about that. We have professional plastic surgery technology. After the accident, absolutely no one will be able to notice anything suspicious." With that guarantee, I felt relieved. After paying the deposit, I turned around and left. The driver had already been waiting at the entrance and drove me all the way back to the villa. This place was something I had bought especially for Willow. Not long after I entered the house, the door was pushed open by a slender, jade-like hand. The woman was wearing a black lace camisole. Beneath it, she wore nothing at all, revealing large stretches of fair skin. Her flawless figure was fully on display, yet her temperament remained cold and distant. With not the slightest unnecessary expression on her face, she fiddled with the strap on her shoulder, and the last piece of clothing slid down along her legs. Then she walked straight toward me. The next moment, she wrapped her arms tightly around me. I immediately felt the softness in my arms, along with a faint, alluring fragrance. I said, "Not today." I directly pulled myself free from her embrace and refused. A trace of confusion flashed in Willow's eyes, and her delicate brows slightly knitted together. She seemed unable to understand my sudden abnormal behavior. In her cold voice she said, "What? Tired of doing it with me every day? Wasn't this your condition?" I replied, "Don't worry, I won't go back on my word. It's just, I'm not in the mood for now." I turned my head away and brushed it off with a few casual words. Willow seemed relieved and didn't pursue the matter. She said, "I still have things to do. I'll go get busy." This period was a critical stage for her startup, so she really was very busy, but I had originally thought she would, as usual, work through the entire night. Who would have thought that after receiving a phone call, she would walk out of the study with an anxious expression? She said, "Since you don't want it tonight, I'm heading out." Her voice was as cold as ever, but this time there was a hint of urgency. Of course I knew Willow was going to see her childhood friend, Makoto. I didn't expose it and simply waved my hand indifferently. Seeing my reaction, she grew even more puzzled, but she had no time to think about it. As she brushed past me, I suddenly spoke. "Willow, you don't have to do this anymore in the future." She suddenly stopped. A trace of impatience had already appeared in her cold expression. I suddenly smiled and gave up explaining. "Go ahead," I said. When her figure finally disappeared, the empty room was left with only me murmuring softly, "You'll be free very soon. You won't have to force yourself like this anymore." As a domineering rich second-generation heir, I had done many outrageous things. The most unforgettable one was that I had bought a girl's youth with money. During university, Willow was the recognized cold and aloof campus beauty, the goddess countless boys dreamed about day and night. She kept everyone at a distance, yet I fell in love with her at first sight. After investigating, I learned that Willow came from a poor family. Her mother was seriously ill, and Willow lived frugally while taking multiple part-time jobs just to pay the medical bills. So I made a deal with her. For the sake of her mother, Willow had no choice but to agree to become my girlfriend, to live with me, to be intimate with me, until I grew tired of her. But over the past 5 years, from university to entering society, her mother's illness had not been cured, and I had not grown tired of her either. We had continued maintaining this relationship. Although Willow had always treated me coldly, the me back then firmly believed that I could move her heart with sincerity, until one accident made me suddenly awaken. After that, I clearly understood everything that would happen next. Half a month later, Willow's business venture would succeed, but that was only the beginning. Afterward, she would become widely famous, rising step by step and eventually standing at the very peak of the business world. And after achieving success, the first thing she would do was return every single cent I had spent on her over the years. Then she would break up with me. I would refuse, continue to pester her endlessly, and eventually even attack the person she cherished most, her childhood friend Makoto, ending up completely ruined and disgraced. I didn't know why I would be that stupid. That was an ending I absolutely could not accept. One sentence kept repeating in my memory: the male lead and female lead are destined to be together. After finally coming to my senses, I made up my mind to change my ending. Between a future and a woman, I naturally knew which one to choose. Chapter 2. Willow did not return the entire night. The next morning, I woke up early and went downstairs to have breakfast. The villa was completely silent, with only the sound of me chewing slowly. After a while, the butler walked toward me. "Young Master Wang, all the servants have been dismissed. I'm also ready to return to the master." I nodded and handed him a letter. In the letter, I explained in detail my plan to fake my death, as well as my intention to hide my identity and live abroad under a different name. I told them not to worry. When the time was right, I would return. It wasn't that I hadn't considered taking them with me, but too many things were involved, and the family business was here. In the end, I had no choice but to give up the idea. Besides, it was also to avoid arousing Willow's suspicion. After that, I went to the hospital to visit Willow's mother. Although I had always been arrogant, I never acted superior toward her. I had always treated Willow's mother with great respect. Compared to Willow, her mother actually liked me a little more. "George, you and Willow aren't getting any younger. It's time for you two to get married." Hearing this, I couldn't help but shake my head and smile bitterly. How could we possibly get married? Having already known the plot of the original story, I understood long ago that Willow only loved Makoto. As the female lead, she was destined to be with the male lead, and I, George, was nothing more than an insignificant supporting character meant to bring them together. Seeing my silence, Willow's mother seemed to think the issue was with her daughter and quickly tried to comfort me. "Willow is just a bit stubborn. I know she's bothered by the impure reason you two got together in the beginning. It's something that still weighs on her mind, so she hasn't been willing to truly accept you." I didn't say anything. I only smiled faintly and then handed Willow's mother a card. "Auntie, please take good care of your health. When you have time, please give this card to Willow for me." The card contained a sum of money I had prepared years ago for her to start a business. Back then, I had been afraid of hurting her pride, so I kept hesitating and never gave it to her. Now that I already knew everything that would happen, I decided to treat it as a small form of compensation before I left. Willow's mother froze for a moment, as if sensing something unusual. "George, did you two have another argument?" "No, I just need to go on a business trip for a while." I shook my head and explained, but at that moment, a cold voice suddenly sounded from behind me. "Where are you going on a business trip?" I turned around in surprise, my gaze colliding with Willow's cold expression as she stood at the doorway. Beside her stood another man, Makoto. I shifted my eyes away and replied casually, "Just going out of town to manage some businesses my father handed over to me." Willow's brows relaxed slightly. She didn't continue questioning me and instead very naturally brought Makoto to sit beside her mother. Just like that, without anyone saying a word, I was squeezed into a corner of the room. Makoto smiled. "Auntie, please talk to Willow for me. I just had a drink, and she scolded me for over half an hour. She's way too strict with me." Makoto started complaining as soon as he sat down. "Did you forget the last time your stomach pain sent you to the hospital? You said you'd never drink again," Willow said. Although her tone carried a hint of reproach, her eyes were filled with tenderness. Makoto smiled helplessly and pouted slightly. Watching their harmonious atmosphere, I shook my head and laughed at myself. Scenes like this had appeared many times in my memory, but this time, my heart remained completely calm. There wasn't even the slightest trace of pain. I had already let go of all my feelings for Willow and decided to return her to the male lead. Willow's mother seemed to notice my awkward position. After glancing at her daughter, she spoke at the right moment. "George, Willow, help me wash some fruit." Since Willow's mother had spoken, neither of us could refuse, so we carried the fruit basket and left the ward one after the other. After only a few steps, Willow suddenly grabbed my hand. I was a little surprised that she would take the initiative to touch me, but in the next second, her cold voice echoed beside my ear. "Our relationship is nothing more than a transaction. Stop coming here to disturb my mother's peace." For a moment, I stood there stunned. This time, I didn't try to explain. I only let out a cold laugh. "Don't worry, this will be the last time." After saying that, I turned around and walked straight toward the restroom. If it were before, I would have waited for her and walked side by side with her. As Willow watched my back, a strange feeling suddenly rose in her heart. She realized that since yesterday, I had suddenly changed. Chapter 3. After washing the fruit, Willow and I returned to the ward. After chatting for a while, our group prepared to leave. Willow, George, it's getting late. Let's go eat something, Makoto said first as soon as we stepped out of the hospital. Willow never refused Makoto's suggestions. As for me, perhaps she didn't want to make things awkward for him. Before I could even speak, she agreed on my behalf. When we arrived at the restaurant, Willow took the menu and ordered nothing but dishes Makoto liked. Maybe the difference between love and indifference is just that obvious. Even though I had asked her before to remember my preferences, perfunctory effort and genuine care were always completely different. But I had already expected this outcome, so I wasn't disappointed. I simply ate quietly. Soon after, the silence was broken by a ringtone. I picked up my phone and walked outside. Just as I turned my head, I noticed a pendant slightly exposed on Makoto's neck, and I froze in place. I asked, "Where did you get that necklace?" Makoto lowered his head and glanced at it, completely unaware of anything. "This, Willow gave it to me. I thought it looked nice, so she gave it to me." The moment I heard that, my expression darkened. That pendant was a gift I had spent a long time choosing. Something I gave Willow on the anniversary of our relationship. I had poured all my feelings into it, yet in her heart it wasn't worth mentioning. She had casually given it away to Makoto. A surge of anger rose in my chest, but when I thought of the plot of the novel, I quickly calmed down. Willow had always liked Makoto. Of course she wouldn't care about something that came from me. At this point, everything should simply follow its natural course. I composed myself and forced a small smile. "It's nice. It looks good." Makoto had probably expected me to get angry. Seeing how calm and indifferent I was, he seemed surprised. His gaze sharpened for a moment before he quickly stood up and served me a bowl of soup. "George, don't just focus on eating. This chicken soup is pretty good. You should try it." I hated chicken soup and immediately waved my hand to refuse. But Makoto suddenly twisted his wrist. The bowl slipped from his hand and crashed to the floor with a sharp shattering sound. Makoto looked aggrieved, his eyes reddening. Before I could even figure out what he was doing, Willow rushed over like a gust of wind, shielding Makoto behind her. Then she shot me an icy glare. "What are you trying to do?" Makoto stood beside her with reddened eyes, looking pitiful. "Willow, it's my fault for making George angry." "I'm fine, my hand just got burned a little." "It's okay, I didn't do anything." Hearing him twist the truth, I widened my eyes and tried to explain, but Willow didn't listen at all. She glared at me coldly, said, "Unbelievable," and turned around to leave. Over the next few days, Makoto discovered that this trick worked extremely well, so he kept framing me again and again. One day he claimed I had caused him to lose his job. The next day he said I was trying to blacklist him from the industry. He even said I had splashed paint on his house and turned his life into chaos. Willow finally couldn't take it anymore. When she returned home, she stormed over and grabbed my collar in anger. "If you have a problem, take it out on me. Why are you always targeting Makoto?" In the 5 years we had been together, Willow had always been cold toward me. Today was the first time I had seen any other emotion in her eyes, and it was for Makoto. I frowned. "I haven't targeted him. None of those things have anything to do with me." I pushed her away, my tone calm. "Who else could it be if not you?" She snapped. "You're someone who could even buy a girlfriend with money. What wouldn't you do?" Then she continued coldly. "Let this be the last time. You've already taken everything from me. Can't you at least leave the most important person in my life alone?" After saying that, Willow looked utterly disappointed. She didn't want to talk to me anymore and went straight into the room. Watching her back, I knew that in her heart, I was still the least trustworthy person. Aside from the sadness, what I felt more than anything was unease. During these final days, all I wanted was to pass them in peace. I had no interest in playing these petty games with them. I tossed and turned in bed until finally I came up with a solution. That very night, I drove straight to Makoto's house. As soon as I pushed the door open, the first thing I said was, "Makoto, from now on, let's live in peace. Starting today, I'll help bring you and Willow together." Chapter 4. The moment I said that, Makoto's eyes widened in disbelief. "What did you just say?" he asked. Makoto knew very well how much I loved Willow. Otherwise, why would I willingly pay for 5 years of hospitalization for Willow's mother? And even after being met with Willow's cold attitude again and again, I still stayed by her side willingly. Yet now, I had come to him on my own initiative and was even planning to bring the two of them together. Facing his confusion, I shook my head. "I'm sincerely making peace with you. You don't need to keep scheming against me with those little tricks anymore. My time is limited. When the time comes, I'll leave Willow. You won't need to treat me as a romantic rival." I spoke seriously, without the slightest hint of deception. Makoto still didn't believe me. He suspected it was another one of my schemes. I didn't care whether he believed me or not. I had already started putting my plan into action. The next day, when Willow was about to leave the house, I stopped her and handed her a ticket to a concert. "I bought tickets for tonight. Come with me." She frowned. "I'm busy with work every day." Her eyes were cold. Just as she finished speaking, I interrupted her. "Back then we agreed that aside from spending time with me every day, You can't refuse any of my other requests. With a single sentence, I blocked all the words she wanted to say. Willow frowned, took the ticket, and left. Her departing steps gradually quickened. Watching her figure disappear, I took out my phone and called Makoto. I skipped any pleasantries and got straight to the point. I guess you've already received the ticket I mailed you. I gave the other one to Willow. Used the chance to build a better relationship with her. Makoto hadn't expected me to truly help bring the two of them together. Half doubtful, half believing, he responded with a simple okay. Just as I was about to hang up, he suddenly asked another question. Why are you helping me? The question reached my ears. After a long silence, I chose not to answer. You don't need to know, I said. Just follow our agreement. I'll help bring you two together. Just stop framing me. After hanging up, I stared absent-mindedly at the phone screen as it slowly dimmed. I never intended to help Makoto. The one I was helping was myself. Besides, Willow liked Makoto. All I was doing was accelerating the plot, and leaving myself a path to survive. As night fell, I received a message from Makoto. It was a photo of the two of them. Makoto was looking at the camera. Willow was looking at Makoto. In her eyes were tenderness and sweetness, an expression that had never once appeared when she was with me. I kept scrolling through the photos. In one of them, the background seemed to be a restaurant. On the table were neatly peeled shrimp shells and shrimp meat piled in front of Makoto. Thinking back over the years, whenever shrimp was served, I had always been the one peeling it. After pondering for a long time, I finally replied with a message. You two look great together. Makoto had assumed I must have some hidden motive for doing all this. That was why he sent those photos, to provoke me. But when he saw my blessing, he became completely confused. The typing indicator flickered for a long time. After rewriting the message countless times, he finally sent one sentence. You really mean what you said? You're helping bring Willow and me together. This time, I didn't hesitate. Yes, I replied. From now on, Willow would be yours. I had originally thought Willow would return home happy, but when she pushed open the door, she still looked just as cold as before. There was even a hint of anger hidden in her voice. What are you trying to do? She asked. I don't understand what you mean, I replied, confused. Before explaining, oh, something came up for me at the last minute, so I gave the ticket to Makoto. After that, I asked, how was today? Was the concert good? If you didn't enjoy it enough, I still have more tickets. You two can go again. Willow couldn't figure out my intentions. She stared at me for a long time. Meanwhile, I looked back at her with complete sincerity, as if I really had been too busy to go and had simply given the ticket to Makoto. In the end, she was the one who gave up. Without another word, she turned and walked into the bedroom. Chapter 5. This first success created many more opportunities for the two of them afterward. For example, one time Willow and I went to a restaurant together. We had just sat down when Makoto suddenly appeared in front of us, looking delighted. Willow, what a coincidence. Before he could even say much, a waiter walked over. Congratulations to the two of you. Today is our restaurant's anniversary. You are the 520th couple to dine here today. Your meal will be completely free, and we'll also give you a pair of couple rings and take a commemorative photo for you. The moment the waiter finished speaking, I immediately stood up. My stomach suddenly hurts. I'm leaving first. Seeing me stand up, Willow was about to follow, but I quickly turned around and looked at her. Don't waste a winning opportunity. Willow, you and Makoto should go. Without waiting for Willow to react, I had already walked quickly out of the restaurant. Only Willow, still standing there in confusion, and Makoto, excitedly pulling her to collect the rings and take photos, remained. There were other times as well. For instance, during a gathering with friends, I insisted on bringing Willow along. When we arrived, we discovered Makoto was there too. When the gathering ended, I deliberately pushed Makoto toward Willow. It's getting late. I still have something to do. I'm not comfortable letting Willow go home alone. Brother, could you drive her back? Oh, right. No need to rush home either. She's had a bit too much to drink, so please take good care of her. The moment I finished speaking, I stuffed the car keys into his hand and walked away. After several similar situations, Willow began to sense that something was wrong, because she kept running into Makoto at different places and at all kinds of times. And every time, I would leave, intentionally creating opportunities for them to be alone. It almost felt as if I was trying to push her toward Makoto. A few days later, Willow returned home very late after working overtime. She saw me lying on the bed and assumed I was asleep, so she quietly went straight into the bathroom. The sound of rushing water soon filled the room. Suddenly, I opened my eyes. Glancing at the tightly closed bathroom door, I quickly grabbed my phone and sent a message. Come to my house immediately. 15 minutes later, Makoto knocked on the villa door. I opened it quietly and handed him a set of pajamas. Change into this and go to the master bedroom. Hearing my words, Makoto looked at the rather revealing pajamas and seemed to realize something. He became extremely nervous, as if his heart might jump out of his chest. I urged him again before he finally snapped out of it. He went upstairs, changed clothes, and lay down on the bed. Just as Makoto settled onto the bed, the bathroom door opened. Wrapped in a bath towel, Willow walked out. She raised her head and looked toward the bed. When she saw the figure lying there, she froze for a moment, perhaps remembering that we hadn't fulfilled our agreement for quite some time. She walked forward without hesitation. Naturally, she wrapped her arms around the person from behind. Her voice carried a faint hint of softness. "My special period is over." Before Makoto could react, he suddenly felt warm breaths against the back of his neck. Each breath brushed against his skin, and a soft hand wrapped around his waist. The warmth of her body made him tremble uncontrollably, and his breathing gradually grew faster. A soft laugh came from behind him. Gentle kisses fell on his neck and behind his ear. Makoto could hardly endure such teasing and let out a muffled groan. The moment she heard that sound, Willow's movements froze. She abruptly pulled back, staring in shock. Makoto. In the living room, Willow sat on the sofa while Makoto sat beside her wrapped in a blanket, looking extremely embarrassed. Her face was dark as she stared directly at me. Why is Makoto here? I hadn't expected her to discover the situation so quickly, and I felt a bit guilty. Still, I answered casually. There was a power outage in his neighborhood, so he came here to stay for the night. She continued questioning. Then why was he sleeping in the master bedroom? Willow clearly didn't believe me. I hesitated slightly before answering. The guest room hasn't been cleaned yet. Since he's only staying one night, I just let him sleep there. Anger flickered in her eyes. Her chest rose and fell as she tried to control herself. She clearly didn't believe my explanation. Right now, she only wanted Makoto to go home first. Suppressing her anger, she said nothing more and pulled Makoto out of the house. By the time Willow returned, I had already gone back to the room. Now the house contained only the two of us. Willow no longer bothered hiding her emotions. She had already noticed that something about me had been different lately, and now, she could no longer hold it in. "What exactly are you trying to do?" she demanded. "Are you trying to torture both of us with this kind of behavior?" Her blunt accusation left me stunned. I had never imagined she would think of me this way. "I just wanted you to," I began. I was about to reveal everything, but fortunately my reason pulled me back before I could say it all. Her gaze grew darker. "What do you want?" she pressed. "Go on, finish what you were saying." Chapter 6. After a long silence, I spoke again, but I did not answer her question. Instead, I said, "Isn't this exactly what you wanted?" My words, which should have been an apology, instead became the final spark that ignited the anger in her heart. "You're always so self-righteous," Willow snapped. After leaving those cold words behind, she walked out of the bedroom with a heavy, tense atmosphere surrounding her. I watched her departing figure and seemed to understand something. After all, technically she still belonged to me now. According to her own principles, no matter how much she liked Makoto, she naturally couldn't have a relationship with him. Fortunately, in just 2 more days, everything would finally be over. The day of my departure gradually approached. I began taking out everything in the room related to Willow. Some things I burned, others I threw away. I cleared everything out completely. Letter after letter of love letters fell into the fire. My thoughts drifted back to the past. At the very beginning, I had pursued Willow in a normal way. For 4 months, I wrote countless love letters to her, but every single one ended the same way, with rejection. Later, I saw how much pressure she was under, and that was when I came up with the idea of our arrangement. I thought it could help her while also allowing me to get what I wanted. Perhaps I was wrong. Real love cannot be bought with money, and the story had already made it clear. Female lead Willow only loved male lead Makoto. Thinking of this, there was nothing left worth holding on to. Without hesitation, I threw the final letter into the fire. At that moment, the front door opened. Willow had just come home. The moment she looked up, she saw the envelope I had just thrown into the flames. Although she had never read the contents, she recognized the appearance immediately. I had once personally handed those letters to her, and she had rejected them without hesitation. Her heartbeat seemed to skip, and the question slipped out before she could stop herself. "What are you doing?" Through the firelight, I saw the stunned look on Willow's face and felt puzzled. After a moment, I answered, "Burning useless things." Willow looked somewhat flustered. She could clearly feel that I had changed recently, and the things I was doing were different. Even though she didn't intend to oppose me, when the words left her mouth, they still carried sharpness. "Well, it makes sense. You've already gotten everything you wanted. Of course these things are useless now." Willow had mocked me like this before many times. Every time before, it would make me upset, but this time, my heart remained completely calm. I murmured quietly to myself, "It's about to end." The vague words made Willow feel confused. She had no idea what I was doing. She didn't stay any longer and walked straight upstairs. I remained sitting there, motionless, watching the fire slowly consume the last traces of ash. "Willow, from now on, forget this chapter of your life. Forget me, the male supporting role. Both of us will begin new lives. Chapter 7. The next day, just as Willow was about to leave the house, I called out to her. Tomorrow is our 5th anniversary. I've booked a restaurant. Let's go have dinner. Willow frowned slightly. She didn't refuse. She only responded with a cold okay. Perhaps because I had something to look forward to. The day seemed to pass very quickly. The day of the reservation arrived. It was also the day I planned to fake my death and leave. I deliberately dressed up before going with Willow to the restaurant we had reserved. The atmosphere inside was wonderful. Soft lighting shone over the table, creating a warm and intimate mood. When Willow saw the scene before her, a trace of something unusual passed through her eyes. But before long, a ringtone broke the quiet. Willow glanced at her phone. It was Makoto. She frowned but still answered the call. On the other end came Makoto's voice, trembling as if he were about to cry. Willow. I've been in a car accident. Can you come to the hospital to see me? The moment those words were spoken, Willow's brows furrowed even deeper. She turned to look at me. I also put down my knife and fork. I heard that, I said. Do you want to go? This time, she didn't hesitate. She nodded. We can celebrate the anniversary any day. Makoto needs me more. I didn't say anything else. I simply looked at her. Her heartbeat seemed restless. She had always been calm, but this time she appeared unusually anxious. Then she added, we'll make up this anniversary another time. The moment she finished speaking, she grabbed her phone and hurried away. Watching her anxious back as she left, I didn't try to stop her. After a long while, I murmured softly, Willow, there won't be a next time. I finished the meal alone. Outside the window, the sky gradually darkened. Then my secretary entered the restaurant. Boss, everything is ready. Hearing the voice, I didn't turn around. I simply responded with a faint Standing up, I gave one last glance at the place that had once held so many memories between Willow and me. Then I walked away, heading straight for the airport. Willow, this time, I will personally send you back to the male lead who belongs to you, and I will permanently exit your world. Chapter 8. Willow returned to the villa 2 days later. She carried a faint smile. Makoto's injuries had improved. The project she had worked on for so long had succeeded, and she had finally established herself through her own efforts. She was no longer the poor student who had once sold herself to pay for her mother's medical bills. She brought the bonus from the project with her, intending to return the money to me when she saw me. Once our debts were settled, she would finally be able to stand tall in front of me. But when Willow pushed open the door, the house was empty and silent. I had always waited for her in the living room whenever she came home, but this time, there was no sign of me. Thinking of my strange behavior recently, a faint unease began to rise in her heart. Unsure of what to do, she picked up her phone to send a message. But on the homepage, a news alert suddenly appeared. 2 days ago, a car explosion occurred in the outskirts. One person was seriously injured and later died after unsuccessful emergency treatment at the hospital. Police have confirmed the identity of the deceased as George Wong, the only son of the Wong family, the wealthiest family in Z City. The short piece of news struck Willow like a bolt of lightning. She couldn't believe it. Frantically, she began scrolling through the photos, as if trying to find proof that the body in the report wasn't George. But the more she looked, the more terrified she became. The body's build and clothing were exactly the same as George's. He was dead. No, she had to see it with her own eyes. If she didn't personally confirm it, she would never believe George had died like this. Willow staggered out of the villa. It was only a few steps to the gate, but her legs gave out several times and she nearly collapsed. She planned to drive to the police station, but her hands trembled so badly that she couldn't even hold the car keys. In the end, she had no choice but to take a taxi. Soon she arrived at the police station. For a moment, Willow hesitated. She didn't dare imagine what she would do if the body truly belonged to George. Miss, we've arrived at your destination. It's time to get out, the driver said. Seeing her pale expression in the rearview mirror and noticing that the destination was a police station, the driver assumed she had come to turn herself in. Willow didn't even notice the change in her own expression. Only after the driver spoke did she suddenly snap out of her daze and step out of the car. After explaining why she had come, a police officer led her to the morgue. When the door opened, the first people she saw were George's parents. Their eyes were swollen and red, clearly from crying. They had already seen the letter George had written and knew he had faked his death to leave this place. But even so, they couldn't help blaming Willow. If it weren't for her, George would never have needed to go as far as faking his own death. The moment Willow saw them, her heart collapsed into despair. She could no longer take another step forward, nor did she dare to look at the body lying just a short distance away. Chapter 9. George's ashes were originally taken away by his parents for burial, but Willow intercepted them halfway and took them for herself. At first, George's parents came to argue with her about it. Yet no matter what they said, Willow refused to give them back. Every time they demanded the ashes, she would respond with the same sentence. If you want to take them back, then I'll only give them up when I die. Willow moved out of the villa where they had once lived. While packing her belongings, she discovered something strange. Everything that once represented the memories between the two of them had disappeared. Thinking back to George's strange behavior before his death, although the accident had officially been ruled an accident, she stubbornly believed it couldn't have been. It had to be planned. That was why George had refused any intimacy with her. That was also why he had kept pushing her toward Makoto. Inside the room, Willow sat on the floor, hugging the urn tightly. Empty bottles lay scattered beside her. Her eyes were filled with regret and sorrow as she mocked her own behavior toward George in the past. From the very beginning, George's actions had been obvious, so why hadn't she realized it? She took another mouthful of strong liquor. Gradually, the burning pain spread through her body. Closing her eyes while touching the urn, she seemed to see George appear before her. George! Willow sank deeper into her drunken dream. Suddenly, the door to the room was pushed open. Light flooded into the dark space, making her squint as she tried to see who had entered. When Makoto saw the state of the room, panic filled his eyes. He quickly rushed toward her, trying to take the urn from her arms and help her stand. Willow. Hearing his voice, she recognized who it was. Instinctively, she avoided him and clutched the urn even tighter in her arms. The wary look in her eyes made Makoto's heart ache. Seeing her pale face and bloodshot eyes, his voice softened. Willow, if you keep going like this, your body will collapse. Put it down first. Let's go to the hospital. Okay. When she heard him, Willow's eyes shifted slightly. She looked at him calmly and said, "You knew, didn't you?" Makoto could hear the faint trace of accusation in her voice. She meant that George had already decided to leave long ago, and yet Makoto had kept her in the dark. Makoto was stunned by the question. It took him a long time before he understood what she meant. A wronged expression immediately appeared on his face. "Willow, I didn't know. That time George came to see me himself and talked about an agreement." "An agreement?" Willow asked. "An agreement about what?" She immediately caught the key point, her sharp gaze fixed on Makoto. Makoto had never seen such an expression from her before. The hand that had been holding Willow's slowly loosened. Under her piercing stare, he finally confessed everything honestly. "Willow, I liked you too much back then, but in the end, I really didn't target him. Willow, you and George were together only because he forced it. You never loved him. Now that he's dead, you're free. You should be happy, shouldn't you?" The moment he finished speaking, Willow slapped him hard across the face. She screamed, "Who told you I didn't love him?" Makoto was stunned by the slap. He couldn't say a word. Tears quickly filled his eyes and rolled down his face as his lips trembled. Only then did Willow realize what she had done. She turned her back to him and said quietly, "Leave. Don't let me see you again." Willow herself didn't understand why seeing Makoto cry made her feel pain. But she clearly understood one thing. She didn't love him. Otherwise, she wouldn't have struck him just now. Just like in the past, when she often lost control because of him, again and again ignoring George because of Makoto. She had never intended to oppose George every time, yet whenever she spoke, stubborn pride twisted her words into something else. She couldn't see through her own heart, nor could she control her actions or her words. Only after George's death did the veil covering her heart finally lift. Now she could clearly see her own feelings, but she couldn't understand why she had behaved the way she once did. At that moment, guilt slowly spread from the depths of her heart. Chapter 10. 4 years later, in a cafe located in the outskirts of Country X. Ding. My phone chimed. When I saw the increased balance in my account, I finally couldn't help but make a call. "Mom, Dad, I know you're worried about me. I'm doing well. I opened a cafe near the school, and the income is stable. Please stop worrying about me so much." I sighed helplessly. 4 years ago, I changed my name to David and came here. My parents had been worried that I wouldn't be living well, so over the years they transferred countless amounts of money to me. In the end, I simply used the money to open a cafe. After all this time, life has been peaceful and comfortable. Although I live in Country X, I have still been paying attention to the news back home. I know everything that happened over the past 4 years. Willow's mother passed away. It happened just one day before Willow became a rising star in the business world. It was a pity that I couldn't see her one last time. After all, I couldn't reveal myself. Willow was excellent, just like the original plot had written. I had gradually reduced all contact with people back home. If she discovered that I was still alive, all my efforts would have been wasted. The only thing that puzzled me was this. According to the original story, she should have already been with Makoto by now. But the information I heard was that she had remained single for 4 years. Every day she carried my urn with her. The people around her all said she was deeply devoted. But I always felt she had some other purpose. Thinking about it made me shiver slightly. Suddenly, a voice sounded behind me. I instinctively turned my head, and met those familiar eyes. "Boss, 1 cortado please." The voice was so familiar that I would recognize it even with my eyes closed. My heart trembled violently. I hung up the phone and stood there frozen. "Boss, Willow deliberately raised her voice and called again. I hurriedly ended the call, a trace of regret rising in my chest. I had always known that if I kept contacting people back home, sooner or later she would discover I wasn't dead, but I never expected she would find out so quickly. It completely caught me off guard. I forced myself to stay calm and pointed at the sign hanging nearby. We're closed today, no customers. Willow let out a soft laugh and picked up the sign, turning it toward me. The bold words "open for business" appeared right before my eyes. She said, "Doesn't a closed sign need to be facing the customers to count?" Only then did I realize I had forgotten to flip the sign over. My expression stiffened slightly. I took the sign from her and hung it back up properly. "Now it's correct," I said. "Miss, this cafe is closed for the day. If you want coffee, please try another shop." After issuing the clear dismissal, I lowered my head and pretended to busy myself with work. Yet the person standing in front of me didn't move. Just as I was about to speak again, Willow spoke first. "Boss, you look very familiar." Chapter 11. My body stiffened. My movements slowly stopped. In the silence, it felt as though I could hear nothing but my own heartbeat. She looked carefully at my face, not daring to jump to conclusions. After all, she had seen my ashes. Was I George? Or just someone who happened to look similar? To dispel her suspicion, I joked lightly. "Miss, don't you think that kind of pickup line is a little outdated?" "No, that's not what I meant," she replied immediately, without hesitation. She seemed anxious, as if trying to prove something, but my only goal was to make her leave. I didn't even listen carefully to what she was saying and kept urging her to go. Left with no choice, she took a step back. "Boss, will you be open tomorrow?" Seeing her finally give in, I relaxed slightly. After hesitating for a moment, I answered carefully. If I avoided her too obviously, she might grow suspicious. After thinking it through, I said, "The school is on holiday these days. There aren't many customers. I might not open." What I meant as a refusal sounded completely different to her. She spoke as if thinking out loud. "So what you're saying is, if there are more customers, you'll open." The moment she finished speaking, I couldn't help glancing up at her. Then I quickly lowered my head again. "If you want coffee, there are many cafes nearby. There's no need to wait here." I couldn't help wondering what had happened to Willow over the past 4 years. Why had she become so difficult to deal with? Suppressing the confusion in my heart, I noticed she was still standing there, waiting for an answer. Helplessly, I nodded. Only then did she leave with a satisfied smile. I couldn't understand what that had been about. Only after her figure disappeared did I call my parents again. They answered quickly. "George, what just happened?" my father asked. "Willow found me," I replied. "Mom, Dad, what exactly happened over these past few years? She seems different now." I rubbed my forehead, feeling a headache coming on. There was a moment of silence on the other end. Then my father cautiously asked about the reason I had faked my death. 4 years had passed. When the question came up again, I didn't hide anything. I explained everything as if it had been a strange dream. Back then, my parents had already opposed my relationship with Willow. It wasn't because she was poor, nor because she wasn't worthy of me. They had simply believed that Willow didn't love me. If I forced things, I would only end up suffering. I was their carefully raised son. They couldn't bear to see me knowingly walk toward a painful ending. But at that time, I had been stubborn. I had convinced myself that she was the one. Later, I realized my parents had been right. Now, however, their attitude had completely changed. "George," my father said slowly, "over these past years, we've watched Willow work step by step to reach where she is today. We can feel her feelings for you. Since you see everything that happened as a dream, why not come back? We can face it together." As soon as he finished speaking, my mother quickly added, "Yes, George, she's already found you now. 4 years have passed. Come back home. We'll face everything together." All right. Chapter 12. I didn't answer immediately. Listening to them, I found it absurd. Willow loved me. I couldn't believe that. We had been together for 5 years. If I had ever felt even the slightest bit of love from Willow during that time, I would never have chosen to fake my death. Now, just because she hadn't ended up with the destined Makoto and had spent 4 years guarding my ashes, people concluded that she loved me. But what if she simply refused to believe I was really dead and was trying to uncover the truth? And once the truth came out, wouldn't she still return to Makoto? That night, I couldn't sleep at all. Only when dawn was breaking did I finally drift into a light sleep. When I woke up again, it was already afternoon. For some reason, the sleep had been unusually deep, leaving me unable to distinguish for a moment between dream and reality. I lay on the bed for quite a while before my thoughts gradually returned to normal. Then I hurried to the cafe. Just as I expected, Willow was standing outside the door. Several regular customers were there as well. Logically speaking, I had already told people that the cafe might not open for the next few days. Even if someone came, it would only be a few scattered customers. But today, so many people had gathered together, there was no need to think too hard about it. Willow must have brought them here. Among the crowd, Willow spotted me immediately. A smile appeared on her previously serious face. She stepped forward and said meaningfully, "Boss, you still came." The moment I saw Willow, I froze. So it hadn't been a dream. For a brief moment, my memories felt chaotic again before quickly settling back into place. I greeted the customers one by one, took out the key, and opened the cafe door. As I pushed it open, Willow followed me inside. An inexplicable irritation rose in my heart. I had already left and made space for her and Makoto. Instead of staying happily together, why had she come to find me? The cafe soon became lively. While making coffee, I began to feel something strange. Ever since Willow appeared, my memories had been confused for a moment. It almost made me forget that I had faked my death. Fortunately, the strange feeling didn't last long. In the end, I confirmed the source of it. Willow. She sat at the bar and ordered a cortado. The coffee was simple and quick to make. I finished it soon and handed the cup to her. "Your coffee." She took the cup but didn't drink it. Instead, she stared straight at me. "My name is Willow. Nice to meet you, Miss Liu," I replied calmly, as if I truly didn't know her. My reaction clearly tested Willow's patience. Before coming to Country X, she had already investigated everything. About a month and a half ago, she noticed something strange about the Wang family. When she first saw George's parents at the police station, she didn't sense the grief of parents who had lost their son. At first she thought they were simply hiding their sorrow. But a few days ago, she discovered that the Wang family had been regularly transferring money overseas. It seemed they were hiding a secret. George, David, similar face, similar build, similar age. One person disappeared, another appeared. If one similarity was coincidence, then so many similarities together formed the final answer. She spoke with certainty. "George, how long are you planning to hide?" Chapter 13. I raised my head and looked at her, confusion in my eyes. "Miss Liu, you've mistaken me for someone else. My name is David. You can also call me Davy." I firmly refused to admit it. What could she do if I simply denied everything? That former identity had already died 4 years ago. The only person who existed now was David. Willow let out a laugh of disbelief. "David, an orphan who came here 4 years ago to look for a relative. Supposedly you have a close relative here. Yet that person isn't even from this country, and no one has ever actually seen them. And over the past few years, you've maintained close contact with the Wang family, the wealthiest family in this country. They transfer money to you every few months. Can you explain that?" Hearing her words, I swallowed. She had investigated this thoroughly. When we were together, she had never been this attentive toward me. Yet now that I had changed identities, she had dug into everything about me. My temper flared, and my tone grew sharp. "Miss Liu, we have no grudge between us. Yet you're investigating me. Who I associate with is none of your business." Willow was momentarily speechless. After a pause, she said, "The Wang family once helped me. Your behavior is suspicious, and you've taken so much money from them. Who knows what your intentions are?" She thought that would force me to admit something, but I glanced at her and asked calmly, "Even if I did have ill intentions, that would be a matter for the Wang family to deal with. It's not your place. What right do you have to question me? As a friend of Uncle Wang and Aunt Wang? Or as the woman who was kept by their late son?" The words struck Willow like a blade. Her eyes instantly turned red. Pressing her lips together tightly, she shot me a fierce glare and turned to leave. Her departing figure carried a cold, lonely air. My lips moved slightly. I knew what I had just said was too harsh, but in the end, I still didn't call out to stop her. During the 4 years we had been together, Willow had always believed that about herself. She had said those same words many times, so why was she pretending to look pitiful now? And besides, I knew that since Willow had already found me, she wouldn't give up just because of today. If I wanted peace now, the only option was to move somewhere else. It was a shame about this cafe. It had accompanied me for 4 years. Now Willow's appearance had disrupted everything. I walked to the entrance to make sure Willow wasn't lingering outside. Instead of going home, I locked the cafe and slowly went upstairs. After entering the small resting room, I lay down on the bed. Even then, I still couldn't understand why she was doing all this. Was she trying to take revenge on me for buying her? But I had also compensated her, and she had agreed to the arrangement in the first place. It had been mutually beneficial. No matter how much she hated me, the moment I died should have settled everything. I couldn't understand it, so I stopped thinking about it and drifted into sleep again. Outside the cafe, just as David had expected, Willow hadn't left. She sat in her car, her heart filled with conflicting emotions. Kept woman. Was that really how he saw her in his heart? Chapter 14. The transfer information for the cafe had already been posted. The new owner also planned to run a cafe, so everything inside the shop would remain as it was. The process moved very quickly. Willow didn't even see how I left. Because of that, she became even more certain. David was George. Originally, I had planned to leave country X and move to another country, but unexpectedly, Willow blocked me at the airport. If you're not George, then why are you running? Even now, Willow still didn't understand why I had faked my death to leave her. Facing her questioning, I felt a moment of confusion. Running? What exactly was I running from? The memories in my mind suddenly became chaotic and disordered. In an instant, my lips turned pale and my body collapsed weakly. Willow was startled by the sudden scene. Seeing that I was about to fall, she hurried forward and supported me. George, don't be afraid. Let's go to the hospital. After calming down a little, I shook my head. I want to go home. Willow let out a breath of relief, but when she heard that I wanted to go home, she suddenly became flustered. For a moment, she didn't know which home I meant. Seeing her confusion, I sighed and gestured toward the ticket counter. I bought a ticket to return to my country. Seeing this, Willow bought one as well. I asked her, "Why did you come looking for me?" On the plane, I stopped hiding the truth. I had already accepted that Willow had discovered my identity. There was another reason I decided to return home. From the moment Willow appeared again, my memories had started to reorganize themselves. I was afraid I might truly forget who I originally was. Afraid I might forget everything from before, and the parents who had always worried about me. Willow looked at me but didn't answer. Instead, she asked the question that had troubled her for a long time. Back then, why did you choose to leave in that way? That question can wait, I said. You answer mine first. I rubbed my temples, feeling a sharp headache as the thoughts tangled in my mind. After a long silence, Willow spoke first. I don't know. What she wanted to say was, I just wanted to see you, to see if you would be happier without me, if you didn't want me anymore, because I couldn't stand living without you. But those confessions were swallowed by silence. The only words she managed to say were those few simple ones. Willow froze. She didn't understand why something seemed to restrain her. She opened her mouth, but not a single word came out. The conversations of the other passengers around us proved that my hearing was fine. Yet the person in front of me kept moving her lips, and I couldn't hear a single sound. At that moment, I realized something. My memories were being rewritten. A sudden realization flashed through my mind. We could only follow the original storyline. The male supporting role, George, was destined to die. I had changed my name to David and left, so I was still alive, but George was dead. So when Willow found me and called me George, my memories became chaotic. Gradually, I would forget who I truly was, and begin believing that I was really David. Willow was the female lead, and the female lead was destined to end up with the male lead. That meant she couldn't love anyone else. Even if she truly did fall in love with someone else, the story would force everything back to its original path. The only reason I could return home now was because there would never be a future between us, because in Willow's world, I had already died. Chapter 15. After the plane landed, I didn't linger. I didn't even look back at Willow. She wanted to chase after me, but her legs refused to move. All she could do was watch as I walked farther and farther away, until I disappeared from sight. Makoto, dressed in a white shirt, waved to her. Willow, I'm here to pick you up. You must be tired from your business trip. Seeing Makoto appear again after avoiding her for so long, Willow felt a strange uneasiness in her heart. Hearing him casually describe her trip abroad as a business trip made the feeling even stranger. 4 years ago, after discovering that he had framed George, she had told him to get out. He had not appeared for a long time after that. It felt like a shattered mirror. Even though it had never been repaired, it had somehow been pieced back together in an unnatural way. She didn't know what was happening. But right now, the most important thing was this. She refused to become someone else's puppet. The legs that had just been unable to move gradually regained their strength as Makoto approached. In that moment, she seemed to understand why George had left. Now, she felt it was time for her to change. Makoto's chattering voice buzzed endlessly beside her ears, giving her a headache. Suddenly she stopped walking and looked at him coldly. Shut up, can you be quiet? You're annoying. The sudden scolding caught Makoto off guard. He froze for a moment before showing a hurt expression. Willow, you must be too tired. Let's go home. He reached out as if to hold her hand, but Willow immediately shook him off. Makoto wanted to say something else, but Willow ignored him completely. Outside the airport, the driver opened the car door for Willow. After getting into the car, she closed her eyes tightly. She couldn't see the grievance on Makoto's face, and she hid her own grievances as well, silently complaining in her heart. It's all that person's fault. Even after dying, he still won't give me peace. Ever since George's death, Willow had treated Makoto like a completely different person. Before, she had never rejected him like this. Makoto had truly believed that George had wanted to help him, but he never expected that George's plan would end up making things difficult for everyone. George was already dead. There was nothing anyone could do to him anymore. Makoto sighed helplessly after complaining, and George's death had turned him into a part of Willow's heart that no one was allowed to touch. Soon, Makoto realized he had been wrong. The car stopped in front of Willow's villa. Willow got out of the car, but instead of going home, she walked in another direction. Makoto froze for a moment before quickly getting out and following her. Willow, where are you going? Willow walked ahead without answering. Makoto had no choice but to follow her, but the farther they walked, the more something felt wrong. Then he realized. Willow was heading toward the Wong family's residence. Ever since George's death, Willow's relationship with the Wong family had been very tense. She had never visited them once, and now, right after returning from abroad, she was suddenly going there. Although Willow's villa and the Wong family's villa were in opposite directions, the distance between them wasn't far. After a short walk, they arrived at the Wong residence. Inside the living room, I had already returned home. My parents were surrounding me, asking about everything that had happened over the years. I answered them with a smile. Just then, the doorbell rang. A servant walked toward the door and was about to open it, but when he saw who was standing outside, he hesitated. Before anyone could stop her, Willow pushed her way in. Chapter 16. Willow entered the house, with Makoto following closely behind. The servants chased after them but couldn't stop the two of them no matter what they tried. The living room door suddenly opened. Instinctively, I turned my head, only to meet their eyes. "George, you're not dead." The moment he saw me, Makoto cried out in shock. Then anger quickly followed. "So this was your real plan all along," he thought. "First pretending to help bring Willow and me together to lower my guard, then faking your death to secure your place in Willow's heart, and finally returning home at the right moment. That way, you could steal Willow back from me." Makoto stared at me, unable to hide the hostility in his eyes. His gaze was so obvious that it caught my parents' attention, and they couldn't help frowning. The servant who had chased after them hurriedly apologized. "Madam, sir, they forced their way in. I really couldn't stop them." My mother waved her hand. Only then did the servant breathe in relief and quickly step out. The moment the door closed, I looked at the two of them and said coldly, "Miss Liu, Mr. Ito, arriving with such a grand entrance, may I ask what business brings you here?" Willow knew that what she had done was rude, but she also understood that if the servants had announced her arrival first, she would never have been allowed to see me. "George, I'm sorry," Willow said. "I just want to talk to you, that's all." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly realized Makoto was still standing beside her. A trace of irritation appeared on her face. She hadn't felt this way before, but now he felt like an adhesive plaster, impossible to shake off. She turned to look at him, impatience flashing in her eyes. "Why are you following me? Don't you have anything better to do?" Being pushed aside again, Makoto felt wronged. He only loved her too much. He was afraid of losing her. Yet now, she didn't even want him to follow her anymore. For all these years, she had always favored him, but in order not to make Willow dislike him further, Makoto chose to leave. He waited outside the villa instead. He paced back and forth, thinking that once the conversation ended, he would be able to see Willow immediately. Inside the house, my parents exchanged a glance. Then they turned and saw the tense standoff between Willow and me. My father cleared his throat softly, breaking the silence. "We have something to take care of. You two can talk things out calmly. Don't always argue like this." After saying that, he and my mother left without waiting for our response. The living room instantly became quiet, leaving only the two of us. After a long silence, Willow finally spoke. "George," but I immediately interrupted her. "If you have something to say it directly. I was the one who kept you back then, and you were always cold toward me. Now that everything is over, we're not close enough to address each other like that. And besides, George is already dead. The only person standing here now is David, the adopted son of the Wong family." Chapter 17. Seeing that I kept drawing a clear line between us, Willow felt a sharp pain in her chest. A bitter taste spread through her mouth. Her lips moved again and again before she finally forced out the words, "George." I know I was too stubborn before. I refused to acknowledge our relationship because I felt ashamed of how it began. But after I heard the news of your death, I finally understood my own heart. That was when I realized how foolish I had been. "George, please believe me. I really do love you." Before she could finish, I interrupted her again. "You love me?" I asked. "And then what?" Willow froze, not understanding what I meant. My face remained cold, completely devoid of emotion. George, the one who keeps entangling himself with Willow, has only one ending: death. Willow, can't you feel it? Everything that had happened on the plane replayed clearly in my mind. Even if she didn't have the awakened memories like I did, even if she didn't realize that my collapse had been caused by my memories becoming chaotic, the fact that she suddenly couldn't speak at that moment was already proof that something about this world was wrong. Willow recalled that strange sense of being controlled. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. She had sensed it long ago, but she refused to accept such a fate. She had someone she loved. She didn't want anyone controlling her life. "George, She had only spoken the name when she suddenly remembered what I had said. George, who keeps entangling himself with Willow, will only die. So she forced herself to change the way she addressed me. When she looked at me again, her eyes were filled with determination. George, wait for me. I will run toward you without hesitation. And when that day comes, no one will be able to stop us. I stared at her unwavering expression and stood there silently. No one could stop us. What nonsense. No longer controlled by the story. No longer having our memories erased. No longer having to watch her love someone else. All this time, I thought I could accept such an ending, but hearing Willow say those words stirred a faint spark of hope deep inside me. After speaking, Willow turned and left. I lowered my head slowly, a trace of melancholy filling my heart. But Willow, I waited for you for so long. How can I be sure that you truly love me, and that this isn't just obsession mistaken for love? Why have I never once felt your love? I murmured quietly to myself. Outside the room, my parents noticed that things had gone silent and peeked inside. Seeing my lonely figure, their hearts ached. They hurried over to my side and asked gently, "George, what's wrong? Did you two argue again?" At first I only felt a little lost, but when I heard my mother's concerned voice, I could no longer hold back my emotions. I buried my head and began to cry. My parents didn't understand what had happened. They wanted to comfort me but didn't know where to begin. The two exchanged a helpless glance before awkwardly trying to soothe me. After thinking for a moment, I looked up with tears still on my face and asked, "Mom, Dad, what if the dream I told you about is real?" They suddenly understood. So the reason I was so upset was because of that dream. For a moment, they almost found it a little amusing. Because of that dream, I had faked my death, run abroad, and lived alone for 4 years. That alone was already unbelievable. Now that I had finally returned, I was still troubled by the dream, but when they looked at my tearful face, their expressions became serious again. "George, don't be afraid," they said gently. "No matter what happens, we will always be with you. Mom and Dad will always love you." Chapter 18. After Willow walked out of the house, she saw Makoto returning from the garage. The moment their eyes met, Makoto's heart tightened. She shouldn't have noticed anything, right? He thought to himself. Just as the thought crossed his mind, Willow narrowed her eyes and looked him up and down. "What were you doing?" she asked in a low voice. Makoto replied quickly. "What could I be doing? I was bored, so I just walked around." He nervously scratched his head and waved his hands, trying to deny everything while quickly changing the subject. "Willow, are you done talking? It's getting late. Let's go back." When the topic turned to David, Makoto hesitated. Back then, he had seen George's body with his own eyes. Although the face had been badly damaged, he would never forget that face. It had been George. So who was the person in that villa with the same face as George? It couldn't be a ghost, or someone who had come back from the dead. "Willow, didn't George die 4 years ago?" Makoto asked cautiously. "Then who was that just now?" Willow glanced at him and walked forward. When she noticed him following again, she spoke with a warning tone. "He's not George. He's David, the adopted son of the Wong family. Makoto, put away your little schemes. If anything happens to him, forget the Wong family not letting you go. There are things I'm capable of doing too." Makoto immediately shook his head and forced a smile. "Willow, I'm not that kind of person. I would never do something like that." Willow didn't answer. She simply kept walking. Makoto followed closely behind her, while another thought quietly formed in his mind. Adopted son. That only strengthened his suspicion. The same appearance, the same age, even the same surname, all connected to the Wong family's son. Who would believe there wasn't something suspicious about that? There couldn't be that many coincidences. Although he didn't know what trick had been used, it was obvious enough. George must have faked his death, changed his name, and returned to Z City. He had chosen to leave before, and now he had come back again. And after returning, he wanted to compete for Willow again. Whoever he was, Makoto would never allow him near Willow. Only if he truly died, Willow would grieve for a while, and time would eventually heal the wound. Then the only person left beside her would be him. Sooner or later, Willow would fall in love with him. Makoto turned his head and glanced back at the villa. A faint smile curled on his lips. "George Wong, you should have died a long time ago. Inside the Wong family villa. Since I refused to use my original identity, my parents could only compromise. It's all right, George," they said. "In a couple of days, we'll hold a family recognition banquet and publicly announce your identity. That will make things easier." I didn't refuse. I simply nodded. After all, I couldn't stay hidden at home forever. I needed a proper identity in the open. After that day, Willow never saw me again. She was searching for a way. Not long after, news spread that the Wong family would be hosting a recognition banquet. When Willow received the invitation, she hesitated for a moment, but in the end, she accepted it. She wanted to see George, even if it was only from a distance. Chapter 19. The banquet was held at the most luxurious hotel in the city. All the prominent families had arrived. No one had ever heard about this adopted son before, nor had anyone received any news about him. But judging from the scale of the event, it was clear that the Wang family's adopted son was extremely important. Naturally, this sparked everyone's curiosity. They all wanted to see what kind of person this mysterious adopted son was, the one who had finally brought life back to the long-silent Wang family. The guests had all arrived early. Everything was ready. Now they were just waiting for the main figure to appear. Small groups of guests gathered together, chatting and drinking while complaining. What's going on with old Wang? He invited all of us here to introduce his adopted son, but we're all here already and he still hasn't shown up. Exactly. Normally when someone hosts a banquet, the host arrives first to greet the guests. This isn't the first time old Wang has hosted an event. How could he make such a mistake? In a corner of the hall, Willow listened to the murmuring crowd. A faint sense of unease rose in her chest. Her heartbeat grew faster and faster. None of the three members of the Wang family, Mr. Wang, Mrs. Wang, or George Wang, had appeared. Something felt very wrong. Her eyelids began twitching uncontrollably. As time passed, the guests grew increasingly uneasy. Someone finally spoke up. It's been so long and none of them have shown up. Could something have happened? Let's try contacting them and see what's going on. Right. Someone call them. As one of them took out a phone to dial, a news alert suddenly popped up. Earlier today, a car accident occurred on Chuanha Road. 2 men and 1 woman were seriously injured and rushed to the hospital. Preliminary police reports indicate brake failure. Chuanha Road. That was the road the Wang family had to take to get here. It was obvious. The 3 people who hadn't appeared at the banquet were the Wang family. Willow suddenly stood up. Her mind went blank. She walked quickly outside while dialing a number. Find out who the 3 people involved in that accident are and which hospital they were sent to. Her phone rang again. It was the Wang family's number. Without hesitation, she immediately drove toward the hospital address her assistant had just sent. 5 minutes later, Z City Central Hospital. Willow asked a nurse for directions and rushed upstairs as soon as she learned where they were. The surgery had just finished. Fortunately, none of them were in life-threatening danger. Only then did Willow finally breathe out in relief. She carefully began to think about the cause of the accident. For a powerful family like the Wang family, their vehicles were regularly maintained. Brake failure simply shouldn't happen. That meant there was only one possibility. It had been done deliberately. The moment that thought crossed her mind, Willow immediately remembered something. Makoto walking out of the Wang family's garage that day. Instantly, regret surged through her heart. Makoto had harbored hostility toward George even 4 years ago. Now that George had returned, how could Makoto possibly remain quiet and do nothing? And Makoto's guilty behavior that day had been so obvious, yet she had been too angry to notice it. If she had only been a little more careful, this disaster might never have happened. But after the regret came anger, a rage she could no longer suppress. After all, she had warned Makoto clearly. George must not be harmed, because if anything happened to him, no one would let Makoto go. Yet Makoto had ignored her warning completely. Not only had he targeted George, he had sent all 3 members of the Wang family to the hospital. Willow gritted her teeth and said coldly, "Makoto, you've really outdone yourself." Chapter 20. After lying in the hospital for 5 days, my parents and I finally regained consciousness one after another. The moment I saw the caregiver, I instinctively tried to sit up, but he quickly noticed and stopped me. "I was hired by President Liu to take care of you," the caregiver reassured me. "Your parents are in the next room. Someone is looking after them. So don't worry, you just woke up and haven't recovered yet. Try not to move around." My mind was still foggy and confused. Even so, I listened and lay back down. Seeing that I had settled down, the caregiver picked up his phone and made a call. "President Liu, Mr. Wang has woken up." Inside Willow's villa, there was a small storage room. It was narrow and dark. Even the small window that once allowed light in had been sealed shut. The clutter inside had been cleared away so that Makoto couldn't use anything to escape. Makoto's hands were tied, and a cloth was stuffed in his mouth. His lips were cracked and covered in dead skin. Barely conscious, he lay miserably in the corner. Summoning the last of his strength, he crawled toward Willow. His eyes were filled with helpless pleading as he looked up at her. After hearing the caregiver's report, Willow hung up the phone. She turned to look at Makoto and curled her lips into a faint smile. "Makoto, you should feel fortunate. George and Uncle Wang and Aunt Wang have all woken up." After saying that, she walked out of the storage room. She personally locked the door before leaving for the hospital. Inside the room, the last trace of light disappeared with the turning of the lock. Makoto was completely swallowed by darkness, fear, helplessness, hatred. Makoto and Willow had grown up together. Aside from Willow's mother, he had always been the only person Willow willingly accepted. George had always believed Makoto was the most special person in Willow's heart. Later, in order to save her mother, Willow became George's woman. Even then, Between the two men, Makoto was still the one Willow cared about the most. But Makoto had always been jealous of George. He had accompanied Willow for many years yet never became her boyfriend. Meanwhile, George had easily occupied 5 years of her life. Again and again, Makoto framed George. He wanted Willow to hate him. Everything had once unfolded exactly as he imagined. But then George died. And somehow, George became the one part of Willow's heart no one was allowed to touch. As for Makoto, because of that one attempt to harm George, Willow had begun to hate him completely. Even when he stayed beside her, she treated him more like empty air. After waiting another 4 years, he thought he would finally get what he wanted. But George returned again. Makoto wanted George to die. He wanted George's family to die with him. Yet Willow discovered everything, and now he was trapped in this dark, broken room. He never saw daylight. He was tortured day after day. Even a sip of water had become a luxury. He had fallen into misery. Yet George and his family remained safe and unharmed. Makoto's grief and hatred had nowhere to escape. He clenched his teeth so hard that the taste of iron filled his mouth. Half conscious, he felt only unbearable thirst. Raising his bound hands, he bit down on them fiercely. Meanwhile, on the road, Willow suddenly felt a sharp pain. Her hand loosened. The car instantly lost control and crashed toward a tree. A harsh screech echoed through the air. Because of the impact, her head slammed against the steering wheel. Her consciousness blurred. She heard the sound of glass cracking, and something that sounded like drops of blood falling. Am I going to die? At the moment her consciousness faded, a voice sounded beside her. Warning, the male lead and female lead are in danger. Vital signs are weak. The world will collapse. Male lead, female lead. Who was speaking? What did it mean? Was it just a hallucination? Before she could think further, Willow lost consciousness. Chapter 21. When Willow woke up, she found herself in a space filled with floating code. Lines of code drifted through the air. She tried to reach out and touch them, but her hand passed straight through. Suddenly, a faint ring of light floated above her head and began scanning her. One exclamation mark appeared after another. Data anomaly detected. Reset required. Reset initiating. There was no emotion in the voice, only cold, mechanical commands being executed. The moment the order was issued, the familiar sharp pain struck Willow again. Then she felt it. Her memories were being forcibly erased. Terror filled her heart. She realized that her memories were already beginning to change. A deep sense of helplessness spread through her chest. She tried to escape, but no matter how hard she struggled, nothing worked. She tried to resist, but she couldn't even touch the ring of light. Then the next lines appeared, and they filled her with even greater fear. Male and female lead emotional bond broken. Reset required. Female lead developing feelings for male supporting role. Reset required. Female lead intends to kill male lead. Reset required. Sentence after sentence appeared before her eyes, and suddenly, Willow understood everything. She stared at the code and gritted her teeth. So it was you controlling me. I'm the female lead. And the male lead you're talking about is Makoto. And the male supporting role is George. For a moment, the system seemed to freeze after hearing her words. Then it spoke again. I am responsible for maintaining the operation of this world. I do not answer questions. But that response had already confirmed Willow's guess. She felt it was absurd. Her entire life had been controlled. Suddenly she remembered the words she had heard just before losing consciousness. Warning, the male lead and female lead are in danger. Vital signs weak. The world will collapse. So it hadn't been a hallucination. All of them had been in danger. And because the world could no longer continue normally, she had been pulled here for inspection. Thinking of this, Willow's eyes flickered. She had originally believed that George escaped control by faking his death. She had even considered doing the same. But before she could find the right opportunity, that opportunity had come to her. If death could cause the world to collapse, and if this system only cared about whether the world continued functioning, then she had a chance to negotiate. So she said firmly, "Let me go. I don't want to be your female lead. I just want to be with George." Willow's breathing became hurried. She feared the system might forcibly reset her memories. If she forgot George, if she became nothing more than a puppet controlled by someone else, then death would be better. The ring of light flickered slightly, as if it didn't understand her meaning. Willow spoke again. "You can reset my memories, but you can't erase my love for George. Even if you force me to forget, once I leave this place, I'll remember again. And if you keep forcing me, I will choose to kill myself." After a moment of silence, the system spoke again, but this time, the voice was no longer mechanical. It had become a gentle female voice. "Wouldn't that be better?" The voice asked softly. "You can have everything, opportunities, endless wealth, a male lead who loves only you. In this world, you would be the happiest person." It sounded almost persuasive. The system simply wanted her to understand. If she returned to her role, she could have everything. Everything except loving the male supporting role. But Willow only shook her head stubbornly. "I only want to be with my George." The system asked. If you lose everything you have now, will you regret it? The system didn't understand human love. From its perspective, the role of female lead was clearly the better choice. Willow nodded firmly. I won't regret it. The system continued. But he is destined to die. The purpose of that character is to reunite you with the male lead. In the end, he will inevitably die at the male lead's hands. Those words stabbed into Willow's heart. For a moment, she felt lost. Even after faking his death, would George still face that ending? The system watched her reaction with satisfaction. Although it had no visible expression, the way the ring of light spun revealed its excitement. It had existed in this space for countless worlds. To it, George was merely a minor character. But suddenly, the spinning slowed. Willow's intention was clear. She didn't want to be the female lead anymore. The data had already become chaotic. After quickly examining the state of the world, the system decided to stop testing her. It spoke again. Well then, didn't George already die 4 years ago? The moment those words ended, Willow suddenly understood. So when George said he was destined to die, that was what he meant. Then the system continued. Everything you have now exists because of the female lead's halo. If you truly give it up, once you return, you will lose everything. Not every minor character can have an opportunity like George's to become the son of the richest family. If you abandon this identity, someone else will replace you. You might not even leave your name behind. The system thought this would frighten Willow into retreat, but instead, Willow answered without hesitation. I willingly give up this identity. I give up everything I have, and I will never regret it. Chapter 22. On the day I woke up, the caregiver told me Willow would come, but until the day we were discharged from the hospital, she never appeared. At first, I thought the caregiver had lied. Only later did I learn that Willow had also been in a car accident. It was severe. She had nearly died. I was shocked. Anxiously, I asked the caregiver to take me to see her. Inside the ICU, Willow remained unconscious. A thin layer of mist formed inside the oxygen mask. The steady rise and fall of the heart monitor proved that she was still alive. When I learned that the accident had happened while she was on her way to see me, I felt overwhelmed with guilt. 4 years had passed, yet when I finally saw her again, I had shown her nothing but coldness, because I had never felt her love. Now, seeing her lying there on the hospital bed, my heart ached terribly. When I was hospitalized, she had taken care of me, but when she was lying here in the hospital, I didn't even know until after I had recovered. I'm sorry. Willow. She had never owed me anything. From the very beginning, it was I who had forced the relationship. It was only natural that she didn't love me. In order to escape the ending where I would die, I had chosen to abandon that relationship. Yet somehow we were still entangled in the end. Because of what happened 4 years ago, I had held on to resentment, but she had always patiently tried to comfort me. My voice choked as I lowered my head. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw her finger move. My heart jumped. I quickly called for the doctor. Willow had woken up. When Willow opened her eyes, she saw a nurse giving instructions to me. The moment she saw me, she froze. George. A man who had been dead for 4 years. Then she suddenly remembered the Wong family's recognition banquet from not long ago. Only then did she recall that I was now the adopted son of the Wong family. Seeing me walk toward her, she frowned. What are you doing here? The familiar voice sounded again, but this time it carried distance and coldness. I froze. Why was she reacting like this? Just as I was about to explain, I suddenly realized something was wrong. This wasn't Willow. Not the Willow who had said she loved me. Not the Willow who had promised she would run toward me without hesitation. This was the Willow from the original storyline, the one who despised me. When I understood this, I hid my expression and said calmly, I came to see you, and to thank you for arranging someone to take care of my parents and me while we were in the hospital. I'll repay the money. After saying that, I turned and left. After walking out of the hospital, my steps slowed. This Willow had already returned to her original self. Then, what about the other Willow? Had she disappeared? A trace of sadness filled my heart. My parents were waiting for me in the car. Seeing my expression, they assumed Willow's condition was serious and asked a few concerned questions. I shook my head. She's fine. We won't have any contact with the Wong family again. My parents didn't understand what I meant, but they didn't press further. The car was about to enter the garage, but suddenly stopped at the gate. Sir, madam, there's someone at the entrance. The driver's words made us look over. At the gate, a thin figure was curled up on the ground. From a distance, we couldn't see the face clearly. My parents assumed it was a beggar and were about to ask someone to drive her away. Suddenly, an idea flashed through my mind. I stopped them and stepped out of the car. I walked straight toward the figure. My parents had no choice but to follow behind me. What are you doing here? Who are you? The moment the person looked up, I saw the woman I had loved for so many years. Her eyes lit up with excitement. George, I told you I would run toward you without hesitation. And I did. I'm no longer the female lead. I'm just myself now. The price was losing everything. She looked at me and asked with a hopeful smile. So, are you still willing to keep me? I'll do anything, but you'll have to provide food and a place to live. The moment I heard her words, I understood everything. I smiled at her and nodded. Sure, but I have a lot of requirements. If I'm not satisfied, I won't keep you. She quickly nodded. Don't worry, I guarantee you'll be satisfied.